I'm V.
And I'm B.
And today we have a very special topic. This topic is huge and something that everybody needs to consider, whether you're going to have livestock, whether you're going to be homesteading alone, or you're going to be homesteading with small children, or you're going to have a garden. This topic is going to apply because today we're going to be talking about predator protection. And today we have April here speaking, and she is going to be speaking to us from Valhalla Homestead in Colorado. And they do so many amazing things. She's going to tell us a little bit about who they are, what they do, and then we're going to really dive into this thing and all learn together so that we can be more prepared. I will say I did some peeking, and one of the first things that she's actually not here to talk about, but I am going to ask her about, is what all they do on their homestead, because I saw a lot being done with dairy goats. Very, very, very exciting, especially because we are newer to goats. So on that note, I am going to turn it over to April, and we are just going to get started with what kind of goats do you have, and what are all your fancy certifications?
Okay. We have registered Nigerian dwarfs and mini Nubians. We actually do dual registrations on both breeds, and what we're known for is for show quality, milk quality goats. So we're also our homestead is actually listed as a part of the Veterans Coalition. The Farmers Veteran Coalition has branded us as homegrown by heroes. So that was kind of cool because both me and my husband are disabled vets. Yeah. So we do like a huge thing with goats. We found them very therapeutic, and hey, they help with giving us milk and getting some ribbons.
Well, and thank you both for your service. We have a lot of veterans speaking in this series, and it's just so amazing. One thing I will say is, a lot of times, do you feel like being in the military has helped you prepare for this lifestyle? Because some of the people who I've talked to, they said that they're able to plan things out better. They're able to be more in the moment, and they felt like they had the mental stamina to be in it for the long haul.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And both me and my husband were combat medics, so when it comes to, if there's an animal down, we definitely get in gear when it comes to that, and I really think all of that military really helped with that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and that's huge, too, because we've had a lot of I guess I didn't expect as many losses or issues, and shockingly it's with the domestics, it's not with the livestock. So that has just been insane. And so I was saying, I wish I had done vet tech or something to kind of be more prepared for that, EMS, anything to be able to just handle this stuff instead of panicking and being on Google 900 times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing, that military mindset of just, staying calm in the moment really helps. There is a lot of people that have gotten into homesteading initially, and it is a natural reaction to panic, because you don't know what to do, and, you might not have a mentor, so always preparing. That's the hugest thing that we've told everyone, is always prepare.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with goats. And we have Nubians and La Manchas, but we have standard size. What else do you have other than your goats?
So we mainly have goats, but we also have pigs. We have various poultry, from turkeys to ducks. We have some horses, some sheep. I think that covers everything we have around here. Oh, and of course the barn cats and the livestock guardian dogs.
Yeah. We have a lot of cats. And I will say, so obviously this is on predator protection. Of course, you said that you have the livestock dogs. So what kind of livestock dogs do you have, and how many do you have?
We have Colorado mountain dogs. We have Also, a different breed of livestock guardian dog. It's a Romanian sheepdog, Boscovian Shepherd. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. I always forget because there's two different names when it comes to them, but we brought them in to evaluate them to see how well they did. But altogether, we have 4 livestock guardian dogs on duty, and then we have 2 more that are being evaluated.
So I know you do a lot of work with the livestock dogs as far as um, like actual evaluation and health checks. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And I was reading through the notes, and I said, "Well, what is something unique that you do?" And then you said that you were health checking the livestock dogs, and I was thinking to myself, I actually haven't seen that,
No.
especially in our area. In our area, we were just ignorant going into it, and everything was a mix. Everything's a mix this, mix that. And so we do have, our dogs are livestock dogs, but they're not, it's not like we have an Anatolian Shepherd or a Pyrenees so they are a cross. They do a good job, but definitely we made some mistakes in that, because if they would have been pure and evaluated and things like that, training would not be what it was.
Well, this is the thing too: is you can get a mix and still have it health evaluated.
Right.
So it's going to be controversial, but Colorado Mountain Dogs are well known to be, mixed type of dogs, and they're purebred. People have purebred dogs that don't necessarily agree with that, but all these dogs have to start somewhere. And even if it's a mixed breed, it should be health tested. That's just what I think, especially when you have a working dog that, you're putting in an effort. You're putting in money, you're putting in time. And the reason why we started all this health testing was because we had a livestock guardian dog that only lived to be 2, and he died, unfortunately. So, and it was because of a heart condition that should have been caught. And we started health testing because of that, because when he passed, we had an unprotected area on our property, and we started having losses, and we never had losses before. So we started losing some of our birds. We had some of our goats were attacked. All sorts of things started happening that never happened before.
Which I think that people, I see all the time, people are letting their birds free range, but they have no means of protecting them. They're just free ranging all day. They go to work or whatever. And all the time people are asking me, well, we've got, some of our birds are just loose cannons. They're just out there, just living on the land. But we do have a lot of poultry though, and we have rabbits and we have goats, and right there is like, who doesn't want to eat that when you live in the middle of the forest?
Oh yeah.
And then, of course we have pigs, but at this time, they're hogs. So, we do definitely have stuff, we are in the forest, so we do have stuff big enough to take them down, but they're not the first on the menu by any means. But I say, well, that's because the dogs, they do not tolerate visitors. Now, that being said, here's another big thing is, I'll ask, how big of a property do you have, and is it totally perimeter fenced, or are they in paddocks with the animals?
We do have a pretty big property. That's why we have so many dogs. We do have 80 acres. It's all fenced, but it's barbed wire. The goats are within a paddock neck in the barn, and we do have an enclosed barn as well for our baby goats. But because of our dogs, we were actually able to move the baby goats out this past year because we had enough protection. So we have dogs in the paddock. We have dogs outside that roam the property, and they stay put. They do not wander. The ones that are being evaluated are actually, they're younger, and they will wander. Even our 80 acres is not enough for them. They'll want to go check out the neighbor's property because they smell a coyote. And that's one thing we have an issue with, is once they catch a scent of a predator, they'll want to follow it. So it's not really a
Yeah.
problem. It's just something we have to train for.
Well, and so we, again, we have a much smaller acreage, which a lot of people who are, just starting in homesteading, they have acreage about the size of ours, or just a little bit bigger, and we have 5 acres. And because of this, but we do have a very heavy predator issue. So we do have 2 dogs, and they do a great job. The problem is that we were supposed to have the perimeter fence up. Some things happened and it didn't get up, and so one of the dogs, he'll stay close. He pretty much works off the other one, but the other one, we used to own more land. So when he was a baby, that's what he trained for. Unfortunately, we don't have that anymore, and of course he's a dog. So, of course, he doesn't realize, oh, they don't have this part anymore. So we've been having to deal with trying to hone him in to be here, and he doesn't have to worry about protecting everything over there either. And so I think that's something that people need to consider, is because they're going to want to wander, and you're going to have to work on that. We were ignorant to that, so here we are, and they're growing up, and we're really having to put in a lot of work on that, where people could have avoided this, or they could have made sure that they had a different style of fencing or whatever, when you're talking about smaller properties.
Right.
So, that...
What type of terrain is your property?
So we are in the plains, eastern plains of Colorado. So our terrain is hilly, and very grassy, and we do have quite a few trees and things over here.
I think people hear Colorado and they just assume you live in the Rockies.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but we do get the mountain lions and bears out this way too, though. So even though we're not in the mountains, we still get, some pretty big predators, various different things out this way.
When we very first got here to our property, like very first, like we get here, we're just like not even here full time, and we go to pull out bear. And so we were like, okay, we're gonna have to, I guess we thought, well, we're not out that far or whatever, that it wasn't gonna be as intense as it is, but we did that, and we also have seen, the evidence of mountain lions and bobcats and things like that on the trail cameras. Of course, then you've got all your usual suspects, your fox, coyotes, possums, raccoons, all those things.
Badgers that can cause mayhem, yeah.
Yeah, so that's been... skunks. And skunks.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I had a dog get skunked. So that was no good. But... he was trying to get into the chicks, and he was not successful. But unfortunately, that skunk is no longer with us. But then my dog smelled like skunk, and I had to deal with that. That was absolutely terrible. But I was sleeping. That's the thing that the livestock dogs also give you, is peace, because I was I'm not outside sitting on the porch with 22 losing my absolute mind with disheveled birds all over my property and losing all that stuff. I mean, the dogs are worth their weight in gold.
Oh God, yes, they really are. I cannot stress that enough, because like that, when I was telling you before, when we had the one area that was unprotected, it was just getting mentally exhausting, losing one animal after another, or hearing the coyotes right up against the house.
We had them walk right up here. Like, just walk.
Yeah.
Like, we were outside. They just came like we were about to have tea. I was like, and at that time, the dogs were very little. And, we were very startled. And so we have another dog. He is a farm dog, not an LGD. We'll get into that in just a minute. But he was able, obviously, to him, that's a threat at his property. He lives here. They have to go. If we didn't have him, we weren't prepared. It was like the middle of the night. We were just running in and out. We didn't have anything on us or anything. to deal with that. And there was a pack of coyotes literally within 10 feet. So without the dog there, that's an issue. But I know there's people listening already rolling their eyes that are like, well, we can't have a dog, or we don't have time for a dog, or we can't train a dog. So we can go over now, what do you suggest for people who can't have a dog? Is there any options for predator protection?
Yes. There is motion sensing lights is what we have used before in areas where we don't have a dog around, and it has helped tremendously. Like, I actually haven't had any issues because of that. It seems to scare them off enough. There's some like lasers that you can purchase for your fencing to kind of deter coyotes from that. You can do netting for your poultry for dealing with owls and hawks. There are different ways that you can do it without, livestock guardian dogs. Because I know for some people, dogs are just very overwhelming. And then you have to train. Because that's the other thing. People think that when they get one of these livestock guardian dogs, it will do the job immediately. It will have the instincts, but it's got to have the guidance. And that is something that people can get quickly overwhelmed. Not being able to give them that appropriate amount of guidance, because once they have it, though, you can just let them do their job.
Everybody might possibly be hearing R2. There's something outside right now. They've been going off this whole time. Yeah, they've been going off this whole time, and it's outstanding to listen to, and even more outstanding to watch them work. It is. We have 2 intact males, and they will be. Their birthday's coming. They'll be 2 years old.
In a month.
Here in a few weeks, actually.
Yeah.
So they'll be 2 years old. And there's a lot of people who have standard pets who cannot figure out why my livestock dogs are still intact. But even the vets I've spoke to, they weren't willing to even do anything with them. They wanted them intact. They needed to be intact, they said. So I guess I'll ask, what are your thoughts on that?
We have heard anything from 6 months to 2 years. What I've heard more of, and from a vet that we trust, it was a year-old. We have neutered and spaded a year-old. We haven't seen any issues with growth, but I can see where that's controversial for any vet. Like, I've heard it all. Like I said, 6 months to 2 years old. There doesn't seem to be a right answer.
No. We did do 6 months with our pet dog, and there was issues. And I will say the 2 outside, they are intact, like I said, and they are like brute Clydesdales. But the other one, he had problems. And we also had a male cat that, we didn't want to do it quite as young, so we did it a little bit older, like they said, but it was still pretty young, and he also had issues. So I think definitely do whatever you feel is best. For us, I think is definitely waiting a little bit longer. Because just from firsthand experience for us, it seems like that's been a little bit better to wait. So everybody take that with.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I will say, even though I say a year old, our bigger livestock guardian dogs that we are evaluating, because they're just so massive, that vet had suggested 2 years because it was, 160-pound dog.
Yeah, so, that's what I think what they were doing with ours. I mean, we have Pyrenees Mastiffs. They're extremely large. They're
Mastiff part. Yeah, I could see the 2 years. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, heck, when he's the main dog, when he stands up, I mean, what is he? I mean, he's like 5'11".
Oh, he's bigger than me.
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely massive. And they said they expect him to continue to grow at this point, so they're not comfortable doing it yet, unless we really wanted it done. And I just said no. Though we're not having issues with it, though, people, this is another thing that I'll have you chime in about. I joined some of those groups, which people, they'll say anytime you see on Facebook or anything where people are right now, they'll always see, well, join the livestock group, join the livestock guardian training, all those kind of things. Well,
I was blasted on one of those groups and ended up being blocked by the admins because I was asking about the health testing of a dog that I was interested in.
yeah,
That started a whole can of worms on health testing on dogs.
Yeah, I got booted. I got booted out because I bought brothers.
Yeah.
I did the taboo of buying brothers, and they were supposed to, at this point, they should have mauled each other. It should have just been a horrific experience. They shouldn't be doing their job, and we'd be lucky if they didn't take us out too. And that is literally not at all.
Not even the slightest case.
No, one of them I don't even know. He is a livestock dog, but I'm 90% sure he's a teddy bear. If needed, and he's super pressed, he will respond appropriately. But he takes a while to get there. He's not mauling anybody. We have 3 dogs, and we had 4, but unfortunately lost one. And there is a hierarchy. And there is this is what it is. We didn't have any of these crazy things. The situation we got them from, we needed to take both. But just plain and simple, we need to take both. So everybody who the Facebook groups, all this and that, you got to take in everything and sift through it for yourself, because it is not a one size fits all. Because look how much experience you have with the dogs, and they booted you out because you asked a taboo. It's just, it's unrealistic.
Yeah. And I used to train working dogs before I even got into the ranching and livestock guardian dogs and anything else. So I was a little shocked when that had happened. But I have seen things on those groups that I would never ever tell someone or recommend. And I mean, that goes for any of those Facebook groups, because I just saw something today dealing with goats and deworming, and it was like 20 years outdated. And I mean, it's not going to help the goat, and it's probably going to make that person's life worse. And there's so many people supporting it. It just, yeah, you gotta sift through it and do your own research when it comes to everything, and have some good mentors, some good vets that you can talk to. I mean, that's what I would recommend, just to get some like professional people that have more experience than somebody on Facebook that might have just picked up their livestock guardian dog yesterday, for all you know.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And a lot of people will come to me and ask me questions, and about like anything, just because we're on a lot of social media, just because I know a lot of people, this and that, they just assume I know everything. And albeit I'd like for that to be true, it is not. Now, if somebody's calling me about rabbits, I got your back. You can call me about poultry, I also have your back. You want to talk about gardening? We can talk about that. But things like, I haven't been doing pigs for 20 years. I'm still learning. I'm still learning goats. The dogs, at this point, they do their job, and I'm like, whew, probably I would do 90 things different doing another one. But it is what it is at this point. So that's, why I'm like, okay, these are the do's and don'ts. Do not do what I did. But that's like if I'm chiming in when I first got them and I'm basing it off the research I did, well, that was all wrong.
Yeah.
So,
and it absolutely depends, too, on the personality, behavior of the dog, on how you handle some things. We've gotten anywhere from a very confident dog that has to be handled completely different from an unconfident one that needs like a boost in self-esteem. It's just, they all work differently because they're all individuals. And so putting it all in like this cookie cutter saying, this is what you have to do, not necessarily. You can, change that up a little bit depending on what that dog needs. And that's why I was saying those groups are pretty dangerous, because I've seen some of the things suggested, and I'm like, that would be horrible for one of my best lifeguards dogs. When we first got her, she was so She was very unconfident. She needed more time to like have a leader to show her what to do and kind of boost her self-esteem. And if I did some of the things that I was told to do, like if I just went directly by like what all I've heard about livestock guardian dogs, I would have an out of control dog for sure by the time she grew up. Now, because she's had that time to mature and we've given her time to, show her what to do, she is our most confident dog, and she protects our goat kids. She started protecting them before she turned a year old, which if you listen to those groups too, they'll tell you not to allow them next to babies under a year old. She was the one guarding them and telling me that there were kids hitting the ground that I wasn't expecting. They showed up early. So it's really amazing what these dogs can do with the right direction.
Yeah, well, by all accounts, our dogs should have torn our poultry to shreds if I would have listened to, everything.
Oh, yeah, the poultry, yeah.
Yeah, since poultries are a big thing, I get a lot of flack, and I know people, that's why I asked you, is your perimeter fence, this and that, as well, because, people tell me my dogs are supposed to protect livestock because that is what they're for, and it's livestock guardian dogs. So they're not supposed to be the property, and I need a property protection dog for that. It doesn't really work like that,
No.
especially not with poultry.
Actually, that's the first time I've heard of something like that, property protection. I've never heard anyone refer to that as a job for a dog.
Yeah, well,
like,
in
our dog.
The only time I've heard of that was when we actually, the only time I've legitimately heard of that was when I was talking to a trainer, and it was for a completely different reason. It was for a personal protection dog, just personal reasons why I have to travel all the time, and that was the point. And so they were covering what that dog would be specifically trained to do at an intensive training, the same place they train police dogs. So, that's a totally different thing. And I'm like, you're confusing dogs, you're confusing breeds.
That's a different type of working dog. Yeah. I see where this comes from now. Okay.
Yeah, and my thing is, I'm like, I've got a brooder coop. I've got, stage 1. I've had tractors. We got big coop. We got ducks. The rabbits are somewhere else. And like I said, it's a small acreage, and my goats, they have a pen, but I actually let them out and they kind of free range, while I'm out there with them and whatever, because we have a small property. It's heavily wooded. We have to work with what we got. So people, they see on TV these rolling pastures and things. We don't have the ability to do that. If I put one dog in big coop and the other dog back in the goats, what about everybody else? I would have to have 50 dogs to maintain that. It just wouldn't be possible because we breed poultry. We've even got more pens coming. So by the time spring comes, we'll have about 15 pens all over the place. I can't have 15 dogs in each pen. That's insanity. So, yes, they do protect the property because people and animals need to stay out. We've had a significant issue with people coming here uninvited, and not all of them positively intentioned. So, they remember that. So I think people get confused, and I said, well, without the dogs and me being here by myself and things, if the dog was like, Joe can come in here with his truck and his gun and his knife, my mom's in there and it's totally fine. That is just unacceptable. That's pointless. So coyotes to people, we just had to have that, and that's what we personally needed. If I could just have one dog out in the field with my goats, and that's the only thing I had, and that's fine. But when you're doing heavy poultry, it's just not possible. There are some things that I saw in the groups about, if they're chasing your birds, you tie the dead bird around their neck and all that. Okay, we had, one of them, he never did it. He's very confident and he never did it. The other one, he's the dog that needs a boost of confidence. And he would only have problems. He never had problems with the very first birds that we ever had because they grew up with them. When
Uh-huh.
we brought in the next batch, he was totally fine with everybody except for the white leghorns. They're super flighty, they're bright, they're running everywhere, and they looked nothing like the other ones. So we had a little bit of issue there. But we just did like redirection, and he just doesn't do it now. We just didn't have that problem. We did lose two, or we lost four, and then he got it under control.
No,
But
that's normal. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm like, unfortunately, and I hate to say it, but if you're gonna have poultry, you are going to have losses. The dogs have to train. If you didn't have dogs, you would have losses as well. You try your best to prevent it, but so we just kind of focused on redirection because I was like, I'm not going to tie him with a dead, rotting corpse. And that was just not for me. And we're already dealing with, like, trying to hone them in from roaming, and they were really young. You're still dealing with puppies. Because another thing people don't understand about livestock dogs is they do not age like other dogs.
No, not at all.
And if you do you want to go into explain kind of what I mean by they don't?
So they're such a big breed. So I have, let me just give an example. So I have, I'll have a 1-year-old that can be trusted around, all sorts of baby animals and everything, no problem. But then I'll have another 1-year-old that's not fully mature yet, and still needs supervision, still needs, time to, get into that phase. That's why there's a lot of livestock guardian dogs that end up in shelters and other things, or needing to be rehomed because they grow so big so fast. People expect a lot from them, and they're not quite at that age yet. So giving them time to mature is super important, and it just depends on the dog. So I'm not sure if that's my experience. I don't know if you've had a different experience with aging with them.
No, and that's pretty much it. We have, the comments we got was about how intelligent Bear is, which is our other dog, and how we have issues with the other ones. And this is from people who are just observing from friends who don't live the homestead life or anything. And I had to explain to them there's a few differences here. Bear was a rescue dog, sure, but he is a lab shepherd. They're highly intelligent, highly energetic, fast, rapid dog, and he's a senior. He's 9. So, yeah, sure, he potty trained. He was like 6 weeks old, potty trained. Cool. But those are like, those types of dogs, they're like high reward, high, like everything. By the time he was 1 year old, he was already calming down. And these guys, it's hard to believe that they're going to be 2 now, because they're just now to the point of, we're confident, we're listening, we're doing our job, we can be left unattended. We're not like...
And you mentioned that reward system is completely different with livestock guardian dogs too. So like the lab mix, absolutely, yeah, you can do rewards and they'll learn, they'll want to do, they want to please for that. That is not a livestock guardian dog. A lot of them, they have the instinct to work. You just have to give them the direction on what to do for work. That's their reward. It's a very weird, it's just working dogs, period, are just very, very different from what a lot of people think of like as house dogs.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
We did do, with our livestock dogs, we did do a big, maybe I don't say big, we did some no-nos. Like, they know how to shake. They know how to sit.
Oh, that's fine.
So, we did do that, but as a result, which people need to learn from my mistake here, as a result of doing that, they do have bad habits now.
Yes.
Now, because they know how to shake and they know how to sit, and we taught them that reward system. What does that mean? That means when you go outside, you'll get a paw on your thigh. You'll get, you're sitting there trying to, maybe you're carrying food, or maybe you have trash out or something. And now you've got a dog that's been trained, well, this is a treat. I can get in here. I can do this. And so we had to, now, yes, they're still, obviously, they know how to shake, they know how to sit, whatever. They know all that now. But we had to redirect from all the bad behaviors that come with that. Like, you can't jump. You can't do these things, which is not normal for a livestock dog. People see them down on the ground and doing all these things, but we instilled that improperly. So that's because we went into it without having experience in livestock dogs, with having poor research and not sifting through, not having a mentor, and just going in. And we had 2 puppies at the same time, and we thought they were dogs, and we trained them as dogs, and that was not okay.
No, it's hard because they're cute, they're
Yes.
puppies, babies, and then they grow up really fast, and then you're like, whoa, wait, I'm a little over my head now. That's usually what happens.
Yeah, fortunately for us, they're good dogs, so we don't have to have, we didn't, they're very large dogs, but they're so good-natured, and they are good, and they do follow basic things, so we don't have it could have been bad. What if we had him, where he was trying to be the leader of the pack, and us included, and we couldn't control that? People need to realize, if you're 4'11" and you don't have control of that dog, it's 200 pounds a dog. His dad was 200 pounds, so that's like a lot of dog to have completely like a loose cannon if you don't have anything. And a really huge, like totally toxic thing that's in our area right now is you can mix up anything with an Anatolian or a Pyrenees, and they're selling them as livestock dogs.
No.
Yeah, it is.
No, I just saw one of those recently, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a nightmare. Every breed of dog, that breed, when it was originated, of course, they did a lot of mixing to get to that, and they're like, okay, this dog, for instance, like, oh gosh, let me think of one, like a schnauzer, that is to hunt out rats and mice. So that was what that breed was for. When you start mixing breeds, because one is a livestock guardian dog, the other isn't, that doesn't work. So I have collies, for instance. I have rough-coated collies, the beautiful lassie dogs. They are wonderful farm dogs. They are not livestock guardian dogs. And the reason why is because even though I have actually 2 different types of collies, I have one that's more of a show dog, and I have one that's the herding dog. Both of them still have that herding instinct, and there's no way that I can mix them with the livestock guardian dog and then sell those puppies as livestock guardian dogs, because they're still going to have those instincts that rough collies have, or really any collie has, which is the herding. And we often see those mixes of herding dogs with livestock guardian dogs being sold as livestock guardian dogs, and that is not necessarily the best mix. You just never know what you're going to get, and you're going to have some of those tendencies to herd the animals instead of protecting the animals.
Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of, I'm noticing on stuff local to us or people that I know, we've got a lot of Great Pyrenees German Shepherds.
Oh my gosh, why?
And then what I see is, well, it's attacking my chickens. Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And we had our dear Nala Jean. She was our puppy. She passed away tragically. We will not get into that right now, but she was a border collie Rottweiler, and she had a totally different purpose. Obviously, she was not for livestock or anything, but when she was here, like day one was like a conscious effort of intensive training. She had to be, because since she was a companion for me, and she was going to be going to some trainers, and like I said, for traveling and things, but she had to be able to be with me. She had to be able to be out. I can't have her outside just attacking any chicken that walked by, so we had to really work on that. And you could easily tell. And what if I didn't have her so young and to do that intense training? Or what if I didn't have 3 dogs that I'd already learned from beforehand? All of those things for those years. It would have just been bad. And so when I see people say, well, any dog can be trained for livestock. If I had a penny For every time I saw that on Facebook that any dog can be trained around livestock, I would be a millionaire. I would be in Puerto Rico on my own private land. And
Oh, yeah.
it's like, that doesn't work like that. It just doesn't, because realistically, people are busy and you've got all these things going. Just ask yourself, do you realistically have half a day to dedicate to training and the other half of your day to dedicate to working off all their energy? Because
Right.
I know, I mean, Nala Jean was a border collie rot, so she had energy for days. Like, these livestock dogs, 20 minutes a day, that's the best they can give you. They,
Oh, yes.
you know, but our other dog, he's 9 years old, and he'll go and go and go for hours. He doesn't
stop.
No, he doesn't stop at all. It's like he's like just zooming all the time, and people need to realize that it's just not going to work. So, not every dog is an LGD, and an LGD is a very specific subsect of dog, and it is not uncommon for people to have to travel to get these legitimate dogs. Goldshaw Farm, which is somebody large that a lot of people watch on YouTube and things like that, he went and did transport out of California for his, because he needed a specific type of dog, and he did all the, I can't pronounce them. They start with an M. Like a Marem or...
Oh, I know what you're talking
Yes,
about.
I can't.
I can't pronounce it either.
Yes, but I will put it on our social media for everybody watching this episode with the actual picture and proper term of this dog. But he had to go to California to get that, because he said around him it just wasn't an option. And so people need to realize this is an investment. This is an investment to protect your investment, basically.
It is. We, for instance, the two that we're evaluating right now, one is doing excellent, so he is for sure going to pass this, test. But not every livestock guardian dog breed is going to pass as a livestock guardian dog. And so these two that I'm mentioning, they were imported from Romania, and one is not. She's not livestock guardian material. She rather play with the coyotes. Like I'm dead serious. She will play with the coyotes instead of guarding or protecting the livestock. But her brother, on the other hand, has been amazing. And so it's just, I mean, that shows you what genetics is. It's amazing.
So
how different.
If somebody gets a dog, like what if they get a dog from you for whatever reason, and it's just not working, and all of that? What is their next step?
Personally have a contract. I don't know anybody, though, that has contracts like I do, to be honest. My contract goes over. If they don't work out, you bring them back. We have a buyback policy, and that goes for our goats, too. The goats, though, I only cover, like, certain things. With livestock guardian dogs, obviously, if you're buying a livestock guardian dog and it's not guarding livestock, we'll go through the steps to see if it's a training issue or if it's a dog. If it's a dog, I will buy it back. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that on my name. But I don't know of anybody who does those things. It should be done that way.
Yeah, unfortunately,
not a lot of people do that.
No, I haven't. And you know what? I know actually an industry that's really big about doing buyback type stuff is rabbits. Rabbitries are it's not uncommon when you're buying rabbits, especially if you're having good quality rabbits, like show quality. But even if it's your meat program or your show program or whatever, your pelts, whatever, top breeders, they typically will take the rabbit back. They won't buy it back, but if you can't house it or you can't do anything, they'll take it back. And I've not seen that in anything else. When we're done with this podcast, I will definitely touch base with you about that, because I had a splitting thought about that type of thing for some of our animals, and I was like not seeing it done, and I was like, okay, maybe that's not common. So let's definitely link up on that. But so basically here, through everything we've said, and I think that it comes without saying that our top tips would be figure out predator protection and what you can handle before you get your livestock.
Yes, before you get your livestock, because we actually made that mistake too. We got livestock, didn't realize that we had such a coyote issue until after we got the livestock. don't be in that position.
We were too. We got the dogs. Well, I shouldn't say that. We were in the opposite issue. We got the dogs, but because we were starting with poultry and because of when the dogs were available, we got the dogs too early.
Uh-huh.
And so then they were getting a little bit older before they were being introduced to the poultry and things like that. And we were coming off the cuffs of winter, and it was a very weird period. So I would definitely say get it before realistically, because otherwise you're doing a lot of like double triple training or something. They were very confused, I should say.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I guess let's move on to your barn cats. Let's talk about them. What kind of protection do they provide for you? I know what kind of protection they provide for us, but
yeah.
So their protection would be more for biosecurity, because they take care of the mice and the birds that come in. Birds can bring in lice. Mice and birds can carry different zoonotic diseases that could, affect my goats. We do test annually for different things, but I just like having the barn cats to cut down on that, because you just never know what the other farm might have or what they're carrying from elsewhere. So that's what barn cats are good for us for. I don't know about you guys.
We have 13 cats currently. Some inside, some outside, some need to be outside. But they do a lot. I will say though, Mama Roo, who is the main outside cat, she does not discriminate. It does not matter whether it's rabbits, snakes, frogs, mice, rats, anything that she can catch is fine. Basically, what we've noticed is if it's smaller than an adult possum, she will take care of it. Anything over that, the dogs take care of.
Uh-huh.
And then we did an episode on barn cats and a lot of stuff and feedback about how barn cats ruin the natural ecosystem because you enter in a predator, things like that. But like you said with biosecurity, you gotta pick your battles here. Everybody wants to be one with nature. I mean, I get it. I want to do things for permaculture, and we're organic, and we do all these things. But also, we want to protect our livestock. We want to protect ourselves. We want to protect the, everything.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we have to have the cats. Before we had the cats, we told a story about how they ruined all the electrical in the Tahoe. They ate all of our plant starts. The mice were out of control. And obviously the dogs weren't able to maintain that. Shockingly though, of course, we have, like I said, a lab shepherd. So the chipmunks and the larger stuff he was getting, but you needed to get the cats to get the mice under control. We get the cats, we're not having problems.
Right.
It's just it had to happen. They're we can't do without them. You can't protect your harvest. You can't things like that, and all of the worming and this and that. We had AI, that whole big scare with the avian influenza that went crazy, and we're an NPIP breeder, and it's like even Murray McMurray, one of the largest hatcheries in the U.S., lost barns of breeding stock, tons of revenue, just absolutely just tons of people they couldn't provide for, us included. We didn't get our order either. All of that because of wild birds.
Yep. Zoonotic diseases, I can talk days about that because I have a degree in evolutionary medicine. That's what I concentrate on, zoonotic diseases. So we're pretty strict on biosecurity, and man, that influenza that came through this past summer, I mean, it even had me on edge, and I was just worried about some of my birds, like my geese and things like that.
Yeah.
So
we were concerned with the ducks. We didn't even do our duck expansion, actually, because if we would have expanded them and finished out that pond, it would have been an opportunity. and so we just didn't. And on the talk of biosecurity is another reason why I personally have not taken anything back. We don't have visitors. We don't allow any of that stuff because RHDV2, huge with the rabbits, just can't risk it. Got AI and this, that, and the other thing with the poultry, and then then we got the goats and stuff. The puppy that we lost was parvo, and yes, she had been treated, and yes, she had prevention, but it did not work, and she was too little to be fully immune. And it's just like, they were trying to narrow down timelines and stuff. I mean, anybody could have brought that in from their shoes. It could have moved in the rainwater. It could have did anything. So we're just very strict about it.
For years, there's no telling.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so it's like, yeah, we have 3 other dogs, and they were fine. And the boys that are outside, yeah, they were here. But another thing is, livestock dogs, which I learned from the vet, the livestock dogs, especially just being so large, they do tend to be able to, I don't want to say the word resistance. It's like they're not as prone to pass with things.
Right. Yeah. It depends. A lot of times, it depends on the breed. So different breeds of dogs do differently depending on the virus. Something interesting.
Yeah, that was the whole thing, and people don't think about that though. They wear their shoes from the farm and then they go out. We have home stuff, we have home shoes, we have out there, but we don't go and do chores in the same shoes that we leave in. And vice versa. We just don't. It's just risky. We also don't let people come here to view livestock. It's just not happening. There's a lot of stuff that's online, and people are like, don't buy from them, and don't trust them being people who don't let you on farm, because they don't let you see the animal first. We can do Zoom, we can do pictures, we can do anything, but I just can't do it.
It just comes down, it's not a hobby farm, it's not, our chickens and everything are not pets, it's for a purpose.
So, with the rabbits and stuff, we try to do as much as we can. There are certain situations where obviously we can clean our cages and things. We can take the animal into our things, and you can view them at a neutral location without touching them. And then we can go from there. But once it's left and gone to your place, we don't accept it back. And if you come here, you can't go inside the pens. We have booties. There's just things, and those were things that were suggested to us from our state.
Yes.
So people are saying I'm doing crazy things, and this is the state that's telling me that's too bad, so sad. This is what we recommend. Stop letting people come to your farm. They even used the thing about, well, we can go to petting zoos, and we can go to hobby farms, and we can go to all these things. And the state even said those places carry liability insurance that covers if their animals go down, they are reimbursed for that. There's other things that the state requires for those things, and we are not covered under that because we are not a tourism attraction. It's not agritourism or anything like that. So I know some people get really upset by that, but I know you do buy the dogs back. Do you have a process for doing that?
We have not come across that, and I think the reason why is because I do behavior evaluations before we sell any puppies. I want to make sure that they are they're exposed to various livestock, and we go through at least one behavior temperament test to see not only how they do, like if they're confident, what kind of homes would they be more in. I prefer to kind of narrow down what dog is better for this person looking for a livestock guardian dog. That way it's a good match. But if I have not come across this yet, but let's say I had a puppy that wasn't fully, it wasn't really guarding the goats. It wasn't really showing any potential that it really liked livestock. It preferred people. I would not sell that dog as a livestock guardian dog. I actually do have one, actually as an example. It was the year-old I mentioned before that we had been evaluating. she's going to end up being sold as a guard dog because that's what her personality is. She wants to be a guard dog. She wants to be someone's companion, but she's not a livestock guardian dog. So that's probably the reason why we haven't come across that yet. But hypothetically, if I did take a puppy in or a goat back end, because we do have a buyback program for goats too, we'd have a quarantine location at a separate area on the ranch. We do like a 30-day quarantine, and that way we have time to pull blood or do other things that need to be done to make sure that they're, of good health. They don't have anything that can make my other animals sick, and then release them back.
And I encourage everybody listening that this does not only apply to when you're buying things back or anything like that. Just because if you come to me for poultry, just because I tell you, I'm NPIP certified, yes, I'm AI tested, I'm typhoid tested, I'm salmonella tested, blah, 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 and you have poultry at home, that does not matter. Still quarantine my birds for 30 days. Because it's just too risky. Anything you're bringing in, just because my facility looks clean or just because you trust me or whatever, it doesn't matter who it is at all, the best show breeder in the country, do a quarantine, because that has bit so many people in the buns for no reason. So don't laugh at me. I have to say buns. I can't say anything else.
That's true.
Right in the buns.
We've purchased from a national show breeder. Like, she went to nationals and won many awards and everything. This was for goats, and I paid a pretty penny for this goat. That goat still went into quarantine for 30 days. I still did blood testing to make sure everything was good, even though I trust this person and I consider her a good friend. I still did this. So absolutely, I'm so glad you touched on that, because I always talk about it, and there's just it seems to be a monthly basis. I come across someone who's never heard of quarantine and never thought about doing it.
And it's sad to see so many animals die that way for something preventable. You just had to put them away. I will say too, as far as the dogs go, they do a really good job, which is, people don't normally think about this, but they also do a very good job protecting the garden. I don't have to be the person who loses all their fruit trees to deer.
Or birds. They keep the hawks away.
Yes.
And other birds, they do not want anything in their area.
Yeah, and because of that, it's just, as long as they're not digging in your garden beds, or anything like that, then they're pretty handy. They do respect the garden fence. They don't try it or anything, but fortunately, because they're there, their presence exists, between them and the cats, I don't have to worry about anything but squash bugs. Right. So that's pretty nice. And I would say, on that note, speaking of squash bug season is finished. Can we just have a little round of applause for that? But that does not mean it is not time to be thinking of gardening. And on that note, Mary's Heirloom Seeds is having a sale. She is a sponsor of this podcast. Absolutely love her. She loves to give back. She heard about this. She heard about the series. She was pumped. She wanted to be a part of it. We are going to be doing a giveaway for multiple things. That'll be announced in our Saturday episode this week. And there will be some seeds in that. So make sure that you jump over there in our Facebook group and our social media. I will have a discount code for everyone to use if they would like to. Now is the perfect time, especially our southern friends, to be able to still plant out garlic. You can still plant out carrots. We can do greens. If you've got a greenhouse, dive in, or make sure you're getting your seeds so you are ready at these prices for spring. So I want to plug that right on in there because she was telling me about doing the awesome sale, and she volunteered to do the giveaway, and she just continues to give and to give and to give to us. So I want to definitely give back to her. So on that note, I think, is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners?
And
I guess I'll do a quick rundown, if that's okay, on what maybe if they're considering a livestock guardian dog, what they need to be considering. Because I think we hit a bunch of notes, but it might be hard for them to remember.
This is a perfect place to do that, and
Okay.
I am glad that you brought it up because that was my next thing to bring up.
Okay. Well, I was going to say is, so with livestock guardian dogs, the first thing that I would recommend is research. That's the best thing you can do is research the different breeds. Don't go by what, Mary Jo said down the street. Just don't go by that. You need to research yourself on different breeds and what works for you. And then I would say when it comes to health testing, I know I mentioned that before. People are going to have different opinions on that, which is fine. But the reason why we health test is because we've had 2 dogs that died from, genetic things that should have been caught early. And I tell you what, putting in 2 years of time on a dog and training it and having it dependable and working and then losing it overnight, is just devastating. And so to prevent that would be looking for healthy lines, looking for healthy dogs. So making sure these puppies that you might be looking at, or even a livestock guardian dog that's an adult, came from working lines that was around livestock. And then some of the health testing you can look for is genetic testing. You can look for different OFA, which is hip testing, elbows. You'll probably usually see that in full-blooded breeds like Great Pyrenees, Anatolian Shepherds, like the AKC breeders. A lot of them will have that. Depending on the breed, this is where that research comes in. You'll also look for health testing depending on genetic diseases that they might carry, such as like their eyes, their heart. Look for echocardiograms. So like the one dog that we had, all it took was an echocardiogram and we could have caught that he had that genetic disease, or his parents being tested before that litter was even produced. So just some things to consider, because these livestock guardian dogs are an investment. It's an investment of time. It's an investment of money. What the prices I see that some people spend on livestock guardian dogs that are not even health tested blow my mind, because I've done that. I've spent a ton of money on a really nice dog, nice lines, and then it didn't even live after 2 years. So I would hate for that to happen to anybody. It's just something to think about. Well, and also have a mentor. So I cannot stress that enough. Have somebody around that's been around these livestock guardian dogs can help you with training.
And there is a lot more livestock dogs than Anatolians and Great Pyrenees.
Yes.
And just
so
because
many, that's why I say research.
Yes. Just because that's what's popular, yes. But I would also add, because we did talk about cats in here, I know with cats, everybody's, and with dogs too, and this is going to be, when I say it, it's going to be controversial. I would not rescue would not be my first step for a livestock dog. I'm sorry, it wouldn't be. Because you just don't know.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. We have seen that a few times where people have rescued and they either end up with some dead livestock, or you end up with a dog that doesn't live very long because of health issues, or hip issues because these are big dogs. There's a lot of things to consider when it comes to rescues, and I wouldn't recommend it either. And I know our vet has mentioned the same thing, because he was absolutely thrilled that we were health testing livestock guardian dogs, because
they're an investment. They're important. They are an asset to themselves. And the reason I mentioned cats, last week we lost a cat, and he was very close to us, extremely close to us. We'll not get into that now, but he passed from a heart condition. He was like literally not even 1.5 years old, and he went into congenital heart failure. Like,
Oh,
the vet
yeah.
was like, what? So the vet says, can we do testing? Can we do these things to try to save the rest of the cats? Because he hadn't seen it. He didn't know exactly what he was looking at. He didn't know what was happening. We have a litter. It was an accidental litter, but a litter nonetheless. Love them all, and they're all staying. But we also have a sister. And she had a lot of problems. She had a lot of respiratory problems and things. And we got them from good people. That's not the problem. It's just they had health problems. And had I known kind of what I was dealing with, I could have probably done something. He was like, there was no way to know. And he said the problem with the cats is cats are cats. You get your litters, you get whatever. But I would like people to know that they are an important part of predator protection, but they should be equally as important as the livestock dogs. Not just throw 20 cats outside and not feed them. They still need to eat well, and they will still work. Ours eat very well. They eat me out of house and home, but they still do their job perfectly well. They matter. They're very important. People will put a lot of emphasis on dogs and then just throw the cats out and want them to survive on mice. That's just unacceptable, and it cannot happen.
You can't do that out here in Colorado, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It gets too cold.
They need shelter. They need food. They need water. Don't make them hunt around for their water and do this, that, and the other. They need to have a home base because the dogs are working hard and the cats are working hard. And honestly, ours work together. Couldn't do it with one without the other. And I will say the livestock dogs, really quickly, before we go, because I said that already, but then I wanted to touch on these things, but is feeding them. There is a lot of issues with resource guarding that is happening that I'm seeing. We've had to deal with a little bit of it, but a resource guarding with people, and they say that they're just tossing dog food out, and then the dogs are getting upset and they're fighting with the goats or this and that. Well, you're just tossing random food out in the ground of a goat pasture. That's just not going to work. You
have to feed the dogs separately from the livestock.
Yes. Very important that happens. And the dogs need to eat the proper amount, and you need to feed them well. Just feeding them nonsense or not feeding it. The what?
I was going to say it's not only just for the dogs. It's also for like goats and sheep. If they get a hold of that dog food, you're looking at bloat now. So
yeah,
definitely feeding the dogs separately. It takes that headache away of worrying about your goat and worrying about your dog.
Yeah,
and the goat would definitely eat it.
Yeah.
Yes, they will.
So it's like you just have to. You got to be smart about it. Too many people are associating them with the cats and dogs. They're outside. No, they still need a care. They still need things. You can't just leave them out there and then they're just going to do whatever. It just doesn't work that way. And it's not right, and it shouldn't happen. And I think most people, especially doing homesteading and stuff, they don't want to harm animals. They don't want to do these things, so it's just best to do it right from the beginning by making sure that everybody has proper nutrition. And even the best dog, if you're not out there feeding them, you're not doing anything, and you got them out there with all the chickens and you didn't feed the dog for 3 days and wanted them to eat chicken feed 4 days, 5 days, that is cruelty, and you're going to have loss.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wish I didn't have to bring that up. If I hadn't have seen it on Facebook today, I probably wouldn't have brought it up. But the fact that I even was able to see that on Facebook and people couldn't figure it out, they thought that they ate with the chickens. That comes back to the research. I don't know anybody who ever said, yeah, the dogs will just eat rabbit feed because they watch rabbits, chicken feed because they watch chickens, goat feed because they watch goats. That doesn't make any sense.
No, and that's the whole point of feeding everybody separately too. That, and it's not good for the dog. I mean, not eating, chicken feed and goat feed. That's not going to work out too well.
No, you want a good, strong, healthy dog to provide you with what they need. They're not out there fighting crime when they are hungry. It's just they need to have good quality care. One thing we run into with issues, which obviously the dogs we have are long hair, and they're out in the mud and the dirt and doing absolutely everything they can to be disgusting. So they mat. We try to, one of them, he's a gem to brush. He doesn't care. You could brush him, you could take him to a groomer, you could do whatever you wanted to do with that dog, and he is with you. The other one, no. It is a whole big ordeal, but just make sure you're, trying to work on it, because we were just doing a little bit at a time because he hated it so bad. And then they got some really big mats, and it was just a disaster. So they're long hair dogs, and make sure that you have the proper grooming tools on site to be dealing with that. Because I did not at first, and let me tell you, not fun. So,
and check your feet too for the nails. You would think them running around, they wear down their nails all the time. I came across one, it was a different type of breed than I've dealt with before, and he had longer nails, which didn't make any sense. He was working, but it was just his genetics. He just grew nails faster, and it was harder to wear down, so he needed a nail trim. Something else, you might not think about.
Yeah, and we're fortunate here that it's just them existing seems to wear down, and I think that's because we're in the Ozarks, and the joke is that we grow rocks. I mean, we're walking, everything is rocks. It's like mostly rocks, 98%, the other percent is clay. So that's fine. But yes, you've got dogs out in just, rolling pastures even sometimes, and they can just grow fast, and they're not wearing them down. Same thing for your goats. Anything, just like their nails and hooves and everything, they've got to be taken care of. So I think I know everybody gets it. I know that there's other means for protection, but the real point of this was to shine a light on the livestock dogs, because there's so many misconceptions going around about them right now. If you have them, hopefully something in here will be like, you'll say, oh, I'm doing a good job, or oh, maybe that's not, maybe that's why it's not working, or oh, I can try something else, or just to be confident to dive into that research. Maybe you've listened to this and said, I don't think I'm ready to commit and be fully into a livestock dog. Let me try these other things first. Maybe that means you have to coop your birds instead of free range them until you're ready, because they really need your time, your effort, your money, your energy. And if you're not ready, that's okay. Just because everybody says you need to have one doesn't mean you need to have one, if that means that everybody's not going to get the proper quality of life. Because these dogs ending up in the shelters and stuff like that, especially when they're made to kind of be out and free, it's just, we just can do our best to eliminate or reduce that a little bit. Anything that you want to end with, dear?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of things today, so I don't really have much to add.
Every time that he was gonna ask a question or anything, well, he was over here just like really taking it in. He made some notes and all those things for the stuff that he wasn't sure of even, because of course we'd not heard of the Colorado Mountain Dogs. He made a note of your website, and he made some other miscellaneous notes when we were talking, especially about the neutering and stuff, because we like to reflect back on these episodes, and we learn every single time too, even though we're doing things. That's why I wanted to really say and showcase that we've made mistakes. Not that our dogs are a mistake, love them, but we as owners, as the humans, did fail. We failed in some of our research, not cross-referencing. We failed in some of our training. at first we failed a little bit into the extensive grooming because we hadn't had long hair before. So the livestock was easier for us than the livestock dogs. But we couldn't do without them, and we're happy to just keep learning. And is it safe to say, I have your website and things, and I'll be sending people there, but are you open for any questions? So if people have questions, could they email you or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. Because I don't think, I feel like we covered so much, but there's honestly so much more that we could cover. It's just endless information. And, I will say this too, is one thing that I found annoying when I've had livestock, but not livestock guardian dogs, was everyone would make out that these dogs were just gold, amazing. They can't do anything wrong. Kept hearing it over and over again, and I was like, this is ridiculous, because I've been around working dogs, and I just didn't think they were that great. Well, I brought them in, still didn't have high hopes. I still trained them, and then after a year, I was like, I cannot live without these dogs because I had a single loss. They're worth everything. So I proved myself wrong on, how amazing these guys are. But I absolutely have no problem if anyone has any questions or whatever, because it's a journey for anyone.
Yeah, well, and the predator thing, it's just such a huge topic. I mean, we just covered this. We didn't even cover like what if you didn't have it and you needed to do trapping? What if you needed to do this or that?
Fencing, coops. All those things.
Yeah, and
there's so much different things.
And on the dogs and everything, it's so crazy. We are, we're hoping that some people who are speaking on topics, we're hoping that they will. Some people might be willing to do some demo videos. I know the EMS is doing some demo videos on some of the life-saving measures that she suggested. Maybe if you're interested or have any time, you would be able to do any type of videos on walking us through how to eval the dog, or watching them work, or just, explaining, kind of what we're looking at, or anything like that. We would love to be doing a meetup in 2023. We will be announcing all of those things, more details to come on all of our sites, but a lot of people who are speaking on topics will be able to come or interact or submit videos or all those things. So this specific topic, hopefully you will definitely be around and available, because for sure you have a lot to share. Just a lot to share. I know that there's probably going to be people, even we have a series topic on goats, obviously, but I know already I'm going to get some feedback about the goats. I know that we've got a lot, like I said, a lot of veterans who are speakers, a lot of veterans that are listening, so they might be curious on that, I don't know, certification or award or partnership or...
Oh, the Farmers Veteran Coalition.
Yes.
So Farmers Veteran Coalition, they're amazing.
Just so many things that you offer and bring to the table. So it was it was amazing to talk to you. It was just, there's so many things that I even thought that I was going to ask, and I even narrowed the questionnaire down, because I was like, my original one was about 50 questions. So I was like, oh man, that's going to be, because, we're probably like an hour and a half in now and just chatting, and I could just go and go and go. I was like, that's going to be like a 3-4 hour thing. So
you'll have to do like part 2, continue this on if you want to.
And I thought to myself, while you were talking and I was making some notes, and I was thinking, I'm going to ask her if she wants to come back and do a part 2 as a bonus episode, because I just think there's so much more that we could talk about. We could get so much more specific. Honestly, do an entire other lineup of questions. Honestly, because we just barely scratched the surface at all.
Oh yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Because I was thinking, I was like, man, we have to wrap this up, but there's like so much more information that someone might find helpful.
Yeah. So I think you've heard it here, folks. We're going to do a part 2. So we will look at the schedule. We will sync up. Definitely look at all of the social media. And if you join the Facebook group, I announce all the upcoming topics for the month or the week, and more information about everyone. I will be including the website, pictures, any social media, all those things about this episode, so you can take a look back at those. But do not worry. If you have questions, email me, comment, ask away, so that we can stockpile those and include them just in case I do not think of them on my own, so that we can include all those answers, because we had a ton of questions come in, and that's how I created the questionnaire in the first place. So just keep those coming. I appreciate your time, and it was great. So on that
Thank you
note,
for having me.
let's learn.
Let's grow.
Let's go. Thanks, April.